Hi there. This time we've got a Squier Strat, the ubiquitous pawn shop guitar. If you were to go shopping looking for a guitar at a pawn shop, you'll most likely find a Squier Strat. It's one of the most common guitars I see. It's probably number one in the pawn shops, followed by different Epiphones and third Ibanez's. But in this case, a friend of mine picked this up. It had shallower locking pegs that had been installed badly. It's kind of noisy. He wanted it shielded and upgraded the electronics in case he wanted to put new pickups in it. Just wanted to see if it could play as good as his Fender Strat. So we're going to give it a try. We'll see what happens. Stick around and I'll show you what it took.
So we proceed with the teardown. Need to get everything out of the way to make polishing the guitar easier. I find the polyester finishes on most modern guitars can be brought up to a beautiful sheen, but it does take a little bit of work, and it's better not to have things in your way. We're going to take the neck off to make working on the neck easier. So you pull the screws out. Everything on this guitar is in really good shape. Notice the amount of polish in the tremolo cavity. That seems to be a common leftover from manufacturer and Asian guitars, is huge amounts of polish in the cavities. Okay, we'll strip the pick guard off here. After getting all the screws out, get it up out of the way. Then we need to uninstall the jack bolt so we can snip the connections to it. Take a pair of wire cutters and just go ahead and cut it off. You could unsolder them if you like, but in this case I just cut it faster. And disconnect the ground from the tremolo. And get your pick guard out of the way. And then uninstall the tremolo springs, followed by the screws that hold the tremolo in. Notice the polish again in the cavity. Took quite a bit of cleaning to get it ready for the shielding process. After we have the guitar stripped apart, we can begin to polish it. I like using the Mother's Ultimate polishing system. It's 3 steps. First step is a fine polish, which I'm using with a cutting wheel. The next step is a micro polish, which I used a slightly less abrasive light cutting pad for that. And then we move to waxing last, which the Carnauba wax I just apply with the regular applicator. As you can see here, taking the polishes off with a terry cloth or a microfiber towel. And then after that, we cleaned out the cavities fully so that I could apply the nickel-based shielding paint. This is neat stuff. It smells terrible. I had to use good ventilation and a respirator when you're applying it because it's really terrible smelling. But you have to get it on all the surfaces. You're basically trying to create a Faraday cage around the electronics. The paint on the surface of the guitar I actually did on purpose to make sure we had a full circuit. They would have you ground the guitar to the electronics, but the shielding on the back of the pick guard was actually conductive, so this provides a ground into the cavity. Okay, now we move to the electronics. Start by taking the knobs off. Well, this one doesn't want to come off, so a little friendly persuasion. Being careful not to scratch the pick guard with a screwdriver. And eventually we get it off. And free the nuts up so we can take the potentiometers off. Remove the switch. I do like the layout on a Stratocaster. It's very easy to work on. The wiring is quite simple. And here we'll reinstall the new CTS potentiometers. Make sure to have the lock washer there. That can prevent you a lot of problems in the long run. All right. Okay, you want to make sure you get the nuts fairly tight and then position the potentiometers to prepare them for being soldered. All right. And we're going to add in the new switch. Nice tight 5-way switch. screws included with it. Go ahead and tighten the potentiometers down, but be careful, you don't want to crack the pickguard. Alright, do our soldering. In this instance, the pickguard shielding being conductive is quite handy. Okay, we're going to install the new capacitor. The orange drop, the ones available now are really big. They don't need to necessarily be that big, but that's what's available. Being careful not to overheat the potentiometer when you solder to it. And then we'll attach it here and to the other one. Alright. Then we'll wire in the switch. Okay, attach the grounds from the pickups. Then wired the pickups in, attaching them to the proper poles on the switch. There are readily accessible Strat wiring diagrams online. I recommend looking at one before you embark on this. Alright, and then it's always good to clean the soldering tip fairly regularly and re-tin. Okay, here we're going to attach the ground lug from the potentiometer to itself. Okay. And cut off the extra leads from the cap. Okay, and then we need to prepare the jack. It may seem counterintuitive, but the tab should stick out the bottom, not the top. And go ahead and pre-install the connection wire. And then we give them a quick hit with the soldering iron. Okay, we're going to fish the wire through the hole so we can get the jack reinstalled. Kind of make sure you don't get the wire in the way of the actual mechanism of the jack. So install the screws. Alright, then we'll install the tremolo claw. Alright, fish the ground wire for it back through. And we'll get that resoldered. Several of these connections were very flimsy, so I thought it was best to just resolder them. And there we go, get that attached. And we can move to reattaching the pick guard and all the other electronics. So let's go ahead and attach our hot lead. There we go. And after that, we'll attach our grounds. And then we can reinstall the pick guard. Place all the screws. Make sure none of the wires are pinched underneath the pick guard when you put it back on. Usually on pawn shop guitars I have to replace the pick guard screws because they're rusted or they're gored, but the screws in this guitar are in really good shape, so we just went and reinstalled them all. Always be careful holding the screwdriver so that you don't actually mar the finish of the guitar by slipping. Okay, when you go to reinstall the tremolo, I like to, on a 6-screw tremolo, run the 2 outside screws all the way down and tighten them until they just start to make the tremolo lift up off the face of the guitar. You do want to make sure it moves freely, like I was just doing. Tighten it, tighten it. When you get to that point, it'll raise up, see, like that. And then you back off a hair. Same for the other side. You kind of want to do it a couple of times to make sure you're happy with the tightness, because it will kind of settle in. Alright. Then you install the other 4 screws. And I don't tighten those quite as tight. You just kind of have to run them down to tight, but not to where they're really affecting it too awfully much. But kind of a feel thing. If you tighten them all the way down, the tremolo probably would rock all the way up and wouldn't work. So there's kind of a necessity to doing this to provide you the correct pivot point. Okay. Then we can reinstall the tremolo springs.
Alright, that's it for this time. Be sure to subscribe and you'll be notified when the next video comes out so you can see part 2 of our Squier Strat rebuild.